Hey everybody, last video before I leave on my trip. I'm just going with some friends to see them on New Year's, and I will still be making some videos and streaming over the trip, but not like a crazy amount. So the last tier list video for legendary weapons at least is going to be covering, of course, power weapons from heavy jails to swords to crossbows, etc. But before we get started, I do want to cover actually a shotgun that I missed in the last video because it was so low on the tier list that when I scrolled down, it actually wasn't on my screen, and that's going to be Astral Horizon, refresh perk pool in Trials Season 28. An aggressive kinetic shotgun with lead from gold, 1-2 punch, 4-pull, stuff like that. No really useful origin traits, very outdated PvE perk pool, and so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and place it in the bottom of D tier. Didn't really move much from last time, but some of you pointed that out in the comments, so I just wanted to kind of cover that ground. And let's get started with actual heavy weapons. So heavy GLs first up, we only have Cataphract GL3 here, refresh Trials weapon, Season 28. Yeah, you can just imagine like the Buzz Lightyear factory meme here. Envious Arsenal bait, envious bait, envious bait, envious bait, envious bait, envious bait. It's like what, like the 6th one that we've had with envious Arsenal, not envious assassin bait. And yeah, origin trait not looking too good when it comes to PvE. And while it is an adaptive, rapids are a little bit more preferred, so it's not the best. And nothing really special here outside of like just, envious bait, envious explosive, which is rolls on every GL these days. Nothing to differentiate it from like a bittersweet or a wicked sister, which came out, 3 seasons ago. So yeah, bottom of A tier, nothing too special there, not worth farming. Let's go to linear fusions. Linears, we have Scintillation and Mistral Lift in the S tier. I think Mistral Lift was either bottom of S tier or top of A tier last time. I don't quite recall. It has Envious Arsenal and Bait now. It has Withering Gaze in the first column if for some reason that's something that you want to do with a linear. If linears ever become meta again or something like that, not a bad pick, I guess, on a linear in particular. If you're going to have a heavy weapon, waste a perk slot on Withering Gaze, but still not necessarily my favorite, and not really even a relevant discussion really, because I don't think linears are going to be meta in the near future. Bungie is going to have to move heaven and earth for that to happen. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just tell you, yeah, it's one of the better linears, but I honestly don't think Envious is that much better than, Rewind Rounds. I don't think it's even better to begin with. So yeah, it's just going to be bottom of S tier, like an alternative to Scintillation if you don't have one. It's also new gear, I suppose. Next we have LMGs. I do think Qua Vinctus, despite being like a equivalent of like a world drop, is pretty decent, unlike something like Qua Safan from previous seasons. High impact, solid frame. You have Demo Meganura just as a baseline default, brain dead, super easy to pick, add clear perk combo. Then you can also use double damage or double splash perks or utility perks like Slice Meganura, Hatchling Killing Tally with accelerated assaults, which allows you to shoot for a very long time without having to reload, on top of giving you that damage boost. And then you also have Wildcard as a very close second origin trait here, which I think is actually pretty decent as well on machine guns. So pretty versatile, just great overall, super easy to use machine gun that doesn't require any like specialization or build crafting to work it. Like Cursed Roll, for example, requires like a melee kill. This is like a very, very straightforward machine gun. So I think bottom of S tier is like totally fair for it. We're going to move on and talk about rockets. Rockets, nothing special this season. We have Micromort, which is a new precision rocket. It's not actually available right now, but I believe it's one of the nail meat hammer, like call to arms weapons, that sort of thing. It does have cluster in the first column, which is kind of nice post buff, but it is a precision, unfortunately. Probably the best like pack ad clear archetype slash, damage example here when it comes to using it for like bipod and stuff like that. But honestly, that's not really super relevant these days, so I'm not going to save it from being top of C tier. I'd also like to note Haliatus has obviously been moved down to the B tier here. Despite the fact that the Bray Legacy interaction with cluster bombs and wolf packs got fixed, it's still a decent rocket, right? It's still auto aggregate high impact. That's not the worst, and Bray Legacy does give you like a small chunk of ability energy now, even if it's not like as big as it once was. Okay, so that's Haliatus. We're going to go ahead and move on to swords now. Swords, we have 2 new swords. Number 1 is Sullen Claw. Now, Sullen Claw, I've decided to place it into the S tier, and the reason for this is because for a lot of portal content where you're just running around and you don't necessarily want to be on Solar Warlock or Stasis Hunter for like proper heavy attack skating, this thing does offer the best light attack neutral gameplay when it comes to eager edge movement. And then of course it also gives you 90 ammo compared to a standard 77 that's given to you by something like the Slammer or Sinancia. And while it doesn't have like the strong heavy attack and it doesn't have like cold steel for stunning overloads and stuff like that, it's still pretty useful for just like how your average player uses an eager edge sword, as opposed to like how a speedrunner might use an eager edge sword for like very specific routing or very optimized movement. So for light attack roam gameplay, this is kind of what you want. And it's like okay when it comes to just hitting ads as well. I suppose it's pretty ammo efficient for that. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give it a mid bottom of S tier. Not good for damage, just to be clear here, not good for damage, but it is one of the better eager edge swords for portal stuff. Okay, so bottom of S tier. Next up, we have 86. Now, 86, if you just look at it at face value, it's a Vortex Frame sword, which automatically should disqualify it from being in a high tier. However, it doesn't even have eager edge, it doesn't have inflated impact, but I will say, however, you do have Bray Legacy, and I'm sure you've seen people do solo epic Corregos with this sword because it just gives you a lot of ability chunk energy back, because swords don't have like nerfed Bray Legacy interactions when you do like a heavy attack with like a bunch of ticks on it, like caster frames or vortex frames. So I wrote here, okay perks, but the worst frame. However, it does have that notable ability regen niche. Now I will say the Sage Protector 2-piece set bonus is probably enough to not have to run like a bad, quote unquote, bad sword like this, and you can run like a caster or something instead, despite the fact that you lose Bray Legacy. I think that there's a lot of swords that have so many damage ticks that you don't need Bray Legacy to supplant the amount of ability energy that you need to get back to spam your abilities. And so because of that, I think 86 is niche for specifically like solo stuff, where maybe you're not using that kind of 2-piece set bonus, or maybe you really, really need your ability back because you're using it for like contra chunking or something like that. So in the future, you might see people use this when OP abilities are involved. However, I don't think in the future, when people have like a fire team DPS meta that doesn't involve like a solo or like a bug or something like that, you will opt for better swords. So the sword is actually doing a substantial amount of damage as well, as opposed to just kind of relying on this sword, which is a vortex and doesn't have inflated impact and all the other things that I said. Okay, so yeah, that's 86. We're going to go ahead and place it into the A tier just because of that niche, just for usability's sake, right? Because everything underneath 86, to be quite honest with you, is much less likely to be used in endgame content. So I think it's fair that 86 gets the A tier placement. Okay, and then finally, we have our other category here, which covers stuff that doesn't really have enough members in its family to really have a substantial tier list. That's stuff like crossbows and of course the new heavy sniper. So the new crossbow, which is called a good shout, has one thing that sets it apart from the rest, and that is Envious Arsenal. Now, Envious Arsenal allows you to bypass the crossbow's main problem, which is the crossbow has technically a high maximum potential fire rate, but reloads so slowly and is a 1 mag size weapon, essentially like a rocket, right? And rockets, they also have like a sort of high potential fire rate, but they have other perks that can supplant them, and they have wolf packs and stuff like that. So crossbows really, really need a perk that helps them bypass this fire rate issue. And Envious Arsenal does exactly that. So previously, people used to use speed loader slacks in order to bypass this fire rate issue and, shoot a crossbow very quickly. Envious Arsenal allows you to not be on speed loader slacks. So you could potentially be on something like Fortune's Favor or, really anything else, or you could be on Sanguine. And Envious Arsenal DPS with High Ground, right? And High Ground, don't get me wrong, it's not the best perk, right? But let's say you got Envious Aggregate or Envious Bait in the future or something like that. This is actually, the DPS of this bow is actually quite high, right? Especially with maybe like a better origin trait as well. I'm pretty sure a good shout will eventually get accelerated assault. So let me actually replace that real quick. So yeah, potential damage option if high ground is usable on a boss. I've seen the DPS with this thing and Mobius Quiver. It's actually quite impressive. So I will be, when I make my damage rotation post equilibrium video, which will be probably long in the future from now. But when I do make that video, I will include a good shout and you guys will see the potential of this weapon. It is actually quite strong with Envious Arsenal. So as Bungie, continues to release crossbows with better and better perks, with, refresh perks or refresh perk pools, potentially with perks like Envious Arsenal, you will see the potential that we discussed a season ago unlock on this weapon, which is this weapon has, infinite total damage theoretically. Now it pairs well with Mobius Quiver. And of course it has actually high swap DPS as well, competing with that of rockets. We'll talk about how these perks will unlock the potential of this archetype. And then finally, we have the Heavy Sniper, which get gut shot, I guess, and aggregate and excel. We already talked about this, right? Like, not much to talk about here. There's nothing to compare it to, right? There's no other heavy snipers in the game. So pretty straightforward, first of its kind, powerful archetype with mediocre first column. I believe, as far as I know, they have not fixed the gut shot straight interaction with div. So yeah, you still want to farm gut shot on this thing, but there's no like competitive content for the near future in Destiny. So like, it's not super important that you get one right now. Okay, that is pretty much it for heavy weapons. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I believe the next video that I'll make is going to be the exotic weapon tier list, which has been reworked quite a bit. Exotic priority has changed a lot in Destiny over the last season or two. So we're definitely going to talk about that next. And then we're probably going to go to like perks, origin traits, set bonuses, stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You guys have a wonderful holiday if I don't see you for a little bit. And if you're farming EQ or doing anything related to the Dawning, enjoy, have a good time, and I'll see you around.